My family spent 30 years making me feel horrible about my disability and accused me of faking it, so I made a life-changing decision. I come from an extremely low-income, uneducated, and prejudiced family. I was born with a disability that affects the way I walk. Growing up, my parents didn't believe that my inability to walk normally was a disability. They thought I was doing it for attention or to spite them or something, even as a toddler. Because of this, I was punished for walking the only way I am physically able to, which means I was punished constantly for about 7 to 8 years until a teacher had to sit down with my parents and strongly suggested they take me to see someone. At this point, the disability was identified, and the doctor suggested surgery, which my family couldn't afford. My parents and family, despite being told what was going on, still blamed me for my condition. They believed that I faked this disability long enough as a baby and toddler that I eventually made my body this way. They've always been resentful because of that and used to constantly remind me how much money they had to shell out for my problem. I spent years learning a fake normal walk for when I can't wear shoes, developing a thick skin, and learning to laugh at myself. At this point, it's such a strong part of who I am as a person, and my resiliency, I don't even think of it as a disability, just a part of who I am. The problem, at this point, I'm 30 years old. Over the past decade, I've had many problems with my feet because of the unusual weight distribution pattern I place on them when attempting to walk. At my consultation, the surgeon was shocked. He kept asking me questions with this incredulous look, taking pictures with his phone, and commenting on how surprised I was that I could walk as well as I could. He said it's one of the most severe cases he's ever seen of this particular condition, as most are fixed in childhood via surgery. The imaging of my lower extremities showed tissue damage and nerve impingement, making surgery a necessity at this point. So I scheduled a surgery a couple of months from now. I've had a lot of weird feelings about this since scheduling the surgery. For years, I have completely avoided any talk of my condition, and generally ignore all of the comments made by everyone. Still walking like a freak, huh? And the like. I know my parents still believe I did this to myself. Even though I've developed a pretty thick skin to others, I still get emotional thinking about the abuse, shame, and humiliation I suffered at the hands of my parents and family throughout my childhood because of this. I'm afraid that it will all boil back to the surface when I tell them and start a fight. I start to cry even thinking about changing this part of me forever. It's part of me. It's the way I was made. Fixing it makes it seem like I agree that I was made wrong. I don't know how to make peace with that feeling. Update. So I had my surgery about a month ago. I was in excruciating pain for the first couple of days, but my husband was by my side 24/7 to help out. Since then, I've been on crutches and still have about another 3 or so weeks of crutches to go, most likely. Leading up to the surgery and immediately after, I didn't tell anyone about it, not even my closest friends. I feared how words might get around and if people would bring it up. It got tough to keep the secret, as my husband and I had to be careful about what we said and who we said it to. It felt like we were sneaking around, like we had something to be ashamed of. I felt like I was lying by omission when my mom would call and ask how everything was, anything new, etc., and I would just try to act normal. I finally told her, plain and simple, yeah, so I had surgery about 2.5 weeks ago. She was pretty shocked, and she seemed genuinely hurt that I hadn't told her. She asked me why I hadn't mentioned anything, and I said that it had always been a very tense subject in the family, and I didn't want to bring it up. I think that got through to her. She seemed genuinely regretful of the situation, speaking to me with shame. I thought, to hell with it, and made a Facebook post coming out to my friends and other family members and letting them know what I had done. I wrote a narrative about what it was like growing up being different, the rude and hurtful things people would say, the feelings of shame and isolation I felt, and how those feelings were so strong that I debated whether I should even tell anyone. It was a positive post, though, overall, as I tried to remind people that individuals with disabilities shouldn't be treated like outcasts or exhibits. And honestly, I don't have time or room in my heart to feel angry or resentful. Everyone was incredibly supportive about the post, and my parents called me many times in the days after. We played phone tag a bit, and when I finally talked to my mom a couple of days ago, she said she wanted to start looking at flights to come out here and visit me and help out. I told her that wasn't necessary, that I was pretty used to the crutches now and the limited mobility I have, and she said she hopes I can reconsider in the next couple days, as it would make her feel a little bit better to be able to help me out, cook, shop, etc. My getting the surgery and intentionally not telling them, coupled with the Facebook post that my mom saw, made my parents feel horrendously guilty about the way I grew up and was treated. I appreciate the sentiment, and I'm glad they're seeing how they treated me in a new light, but I think I'm honestly too busy in the next couple of weeks to host a guest. I told her we could revisit the discussion in a couple of weeks. Everything is pretty great right now. I made peace a long time ago because I will never be completely comfortable or close with my family, but it's nice to know that people can change, or try to.